we reach somewhere around 300 million unique viewers watch a MrBeast video in a month. Well, how do we reach a billion?
High performance is all about taking the learnings and the lessons from the world's highest performers for you, and we're about to do this with a man who has changed the face of content on YouTube. No one is bigger than MrBeast, and we're about to speak to the president, Marc Hustvedt, to find out the secrets behind MrBeast's success. So here we are at NAB, and I'm with the president of the MrBeast world. I'm joined by Marc. Marc, you've been talking here today. I've seen a big line of people who've been queuing up to ask you for advice and words of wisdom. What kind of questions were you getting?
Oh my gosh. I mean, first of all, there's a proliferation in the creator economy of just people wanting to get in. They're seeing that this is a real business. They're seeing billion-dollar brands get built. I've never been more inspired than this moment in time. And it's been taking a decade. It felt like we've always been the ones kind of like, hey, pay attention to YouTube, pay attention to YouTube. And finally now, everyone's paying attention. So, but obviously there's a lot of learning. Like people are still they have little bits of information or they read a headline. They really haven't put in the grind yet. So like, a lot of it's like, you gotta get to work, start making content.
True leadership is leaning down and lifting others up, right? So for people watching this, what would you love them to hear from you about building their own brands, creating their own worlds?
Pretty humble person, so I take sort of a servant leadership approach, which is like you got to get great people, you got to give them clear direction, and you get out of their way in many ways. Jimmy is our true leader, of course. He's leading so many more of this entire industry, but ultimately we're looking for the right. We hire people, not roles, and we look for people who can really, they have an obsession and the ability to go deep. We get into, we have this sort of set of values. Do they see the value? Are they obsessed?
What is the value?
And the value is understand the value of streaming media and what it can do. It's an incredibly powerful tool. It's as powerful as software. And I like to say content is the new code. It really was. It used to be software engineering gave you an incredible amount of leverage. You could create an idea or a game and it replicated almost for free. Content now does that. But it is such a powerful tool, and you needed it whether you're building a CPG business, with a D2C business, a service business. It is now a fundamental tool. So we want those who obsess over the content and obsess over making it great. And generally we find it's a personality type, but they have to obsess over something. If I asked you what do you obsess over, and you don't have an answer at all, it doesn't even have to be YouTube. But it has to be something that you can go down the rabbit hole and be the most knowledgeable of your entire friend group, and they turn to you. That's usually somebody who's going to work out. You're trying to balance we're moving 1,000,000 miles an hour. We're trying to collapse time. Time is a real that's our most scarce resource. It's not capital. It's not ideas. We've been sort of Jimmy will say it's an infinite amount of ideas. It's can you execute them in a short amount of time? And so we really look for people who are willing to join us in this battle of attacking normal time conventions. Because normal time conventions, look at the business world, it's slow. It's really slow. And people send an email, they wait for the email to come back, and somebody's out of the office, and they have to wait till circle back on all this. You can take 4 or 5 weeks to do something that you just picked up the phone and called one-to-one. It could solve and move the ball way faster. So we definitely love people who love to pick up the phone and aren't afraid to do that. And what's wild is that's not a normal behavior, especially in the business world. But the creator world gets it, and Jimmy will do it. He'll often, I'll even come to him and I'm surprised. He'll be like, all right, let's get him on the phone right now. I'm like, Jimmy, it's Sunday at 10 o'clock at night. I don't think we can get them on the phone. He's like, oh, let's try. Okay. And we try, and sure enough, we do. So he surprises me, he pushes me.
So let's talk then about Jimmy, not about MrBeast. I would love to know, what are the things, aside from being a great creator and being brilliant on camera, what are the things that he brings to the business?
Yeah, I once sort of said, using an athlete analogy, because I think he really is kind of an athlete. Some people talk about a 5-tool athlete. It means good hands, good speed, hand-eye coordination. Well, Jimmy, I wrote it down once, he had 12 great tools. And some of those is a huge appetite for risk. A conviction in yourself, a belief in yourself, that willingness to say, I'm going to maybe make $1 million, but I'm going to bet that $1 million forward onto the next one. It's going to be even better. Most people don't have that conviction. If I really gave you $1 million and said, you're going to put it forward onto the next one.
Look, we all know the struggle of deciding what to eat, but what if I told you that Huel can make that decision easier? Their taster bundle has got 8 ready-to-drink bottles, including their black edition, which has got 35 grams of protein, 6 daily A to Z vitamins, 8 complete nutrition bars, 2 hot savoury pots, and a free Huel t-shirt. All you have to do is click the link in the description to unlock your offer now at huel.com/high-performance.
The other pieces of this, of course, are just like obsessing and not taking your eye off an evolving platform.
He's personally interested in the algorithms, the future, the trends, the fashion.
Yeah, and we have to learn to trust him but challenge him, and that's a tricky situation too, like anybody. But he's he puts in the work, but he's realized that if you surround yourself by really smart people, who they themselves are also bringing new voices and new opinions and frankly new obsessions to the table, usually that's going to yield a better outcome. But it involves him at his highest level, which means that we have to make the organization sort of, enable that to happen. Which means, frankly, we have to, like I said, going back to the time thing, we have to figure out how to shrink time. And then, because his time is our limiting factor, it's like there's a linear constraint. I mean, business can keep growing sort of somewhat exponentially like it is, but we're only having so much Jimmy time. So we've got to really, really be economical with that time.
And apart from picking up the phone and having personal relationships with people, what else have you learned about shrinking time?
So those high-value conversations have to be highly efficient. You can't just come with a problem and say, hey, Jimmy, this is messed up. We can't do this. What do we do? Let's just sit here and talk about it for 4 hours. Ideally, you've come with here are 4 solutions. We've looked at this, this, and this. This isn't going to work because of this. This will cost us 3 times as much. This we could do, but it's going to basically involve straining the entire team for 2 weeks. And then you sort of run through options and outcomes. And if you do that really well and efficiently, our organization moves better. So I think it's part of that's just preparation, problem solving, and working through options. We always try to have lots of options because you're constantly just making decisions, and you have to make them fast, and you want to enable the culture and reflex of fast decision making. And that's hard. Frankly, I would fall into traps where it's let's punt on that decision, and then I have to catch myself. It's no, that's stalling and slowing us down.
So how do you set targets, set goals? How do you all view the future?
There's 2.7 billion MAU or monthly active users on the platform. We reach somewhere around 300 million unique viewers watch a MrBeast video in a month. In 90 days, it's something like 660 million. So we're kind of well, how do we reach a billion? How do we reach a billion people a month? If we're in their language and we make entertaining and compelling content and that drives high viewer satisfaction, in theory, that's an addressable audience we could reach. So to me, I think we've got a long way to go. YouTube is growing and it's continuing to grow. There's 8 billion people in the world today. More and more of them are just completely skipping certain parts of broadband distribution. So they're in just 5G mobile, able to watch our content, for free and easily. So I think the addressable amount of humans is so massive that we have a long, long way to go. From you look at the chocolate business, a long way to go there as we continue to add more countries. The hard part is actually just sourcing and building that product and supply chain, and doing it safely and ethically too is really important.
What are you most proud of in the time that you've been with MrBeast?
The fact that we're accelerating growth and that we've added a lot more people, yet we haven't compromised performance. And that almost always, typically you might have sort of this period where you're ramping up, and then what happens is you're sort of putting in a governor on the organization. We've seen it countless times again, a little more in the venture-backed space, but where growth starts to slow. I mean, as long as we got to keep this alchemy right, we don't take it for granted. And if you see sort of the organization start to have those cultures that feel like they're trying to put the brakes on, we gotta push through that. So, we focus on high performance, and I'm glad you do too.
Love that. Listen, thank you so much. Wasn't that interesting? I think the big takeaway for me from talking to Marc is that Jimmy, MrBeast, is still totally involved in the running of that brand. And it just reminds me of the phrase, don't half-ass it. Everything you do is anything you do. Focus on the 1%, the world-class basics. To this day, despite the success of MrBeast, Jimmy is still making decisions. He's in the weeds, he's getting involved in the tiniest details to make that channel a success. And it's no surprise that the harder he works, the luckier he gets. So there you go, some of the secrets behind the success of MrBeast. I'd love to know what you think of it. Hit me up in the comments, hit subscribe, and we'll see you soon for more.